Hi, I'm Jodi Barrows with the Square and a Square system, and today I'm going to show you the basic square, how we do the cutting and the sewing, and how we trim the option 1, which is found in almost every quilt, just a plain old simple square and a square. Let's see how it works. Now the way that you make your basic squares is that you want to have your squares and your strips cut, and then you want to sew around all 4 sides of that square with the strip. But to do it in a very fast chain piecing method is the way that we do it, instead of just cutting out these individual pieces and sewing them on. So what you want to do is start your strip in the sewing machine and just load your squares up on it, sewing down the edge. You leave about a finger space in between, and you just keep sewing all the way down your strip. You can see here how we've got these sewn on. Leave a little space, sew a little more, leave a little space, sew a little more, and put as many on the strip as it will hold, or as many as what you need. Now, when you get this all sewn in and you get to the end of it, don't just rip it all out, leave it in there. Start another strip, and then come around and lay this nice and gently down. So see, we already have the strip sewn on this opposite side now. Now we want to put it here. So load these up, keep them all on that strip, leave them folded nice and neat. Don't open up your piece. See, it's not going to get caught. You have enough room to just keep sewing these on down. Now, when you have both sides on your square, 2 opposite sides, like you see here, then you want to just come in here with your scissors or your rotary cutter and cut those apart. When you do that, they will look like this. See how this comes out of each one? Then you'll press what we call pressing them open. Press your strips open, which means that your seams are out. The next thing you want to do, remember this is what we're striving for, a strip on each side. You can see how we have the opposite sides on here, how we got those. Now we want to sew the short strip on the other side. So start your square in the machine, and you're just going to lay your strip on the side and keep sewing. Now the way that I get my measurement for this short strip, if you're working with scraps, then that's fine, but if you're working with longer pieces, you want to know how to get it just that long. So I go right across my square, no matter what size of square I'm working with. I get my little magic estimate, and then I just fan fold these in my hand. I'm always amazed in class how this is abnormal for people to do. So see how that's going to be long enough to cover your square. You're going to snip these at the top and at the bottom, and you'll wind up with all of your little short strips that you need to sew on the side. So you can see in this step how we did that. We started sewing, put the short on. I call slap it down, sew it on, slap and sew. Sew all the way through, starting your next one, and just keep going until you have side 3 on. There's 4 sides to a square, and this is side 3 that you're sewing on. Then you will turn them around in the machine, and you want to repeat the process, sewing the short strip on to the opposite side. Now in this one here, you can see how we've done that. And see how you just chain feed those through, and there you will have your square in the middle with the strip on the side. Cut them apart and press. Now when we get ready to press, we want to, so here you can see where we had all 4 sides the same color. I like to just kind of go over the top. I like a small iron because it stays hot, and there's not part of the iron pressing something somewhere else, turning up a corner or an edge. And I like to just go right over the top. I'll just stack them up. I can get about 20 in a stack. And notice how I even pick these up to give me speed. So see how that could already be open a little bit. And there you go. There you have your pieces all pressed. Now we're going to trim option 1s today. There are 39 options in the Square and a Square system, and option 1 is the very beginning, and it's just the magical plain Square and a Square unit. So we're going to take your Square and a Square ruler, and see that 90? we're going to push it into the corner of that square. You want your black lines to line up over the seam. Now your block can be a D, and you can still get a nice square unit with nice sharp points. So we're just trimming. See, we're leaving that 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going around, and I'm doing that to all 4 corners. Now, as I go around, I want to look where I've already cut, making sure that the outside edges of my block is staying square. Once you start trimming, your outside edge is more important than these lines in here lining up. Of course, your seam allowance always has to be correct, and you want it to stay square on the outside edge. That's part of the magic of the square and a square system. And part of what I talk about is the forgiveness. This inside, the 4 sides that you cut, the 4 sides that you sew, and then you press, those are the human element in putting a quilt together. And so the system helps remove and improve on the work that the human has done. It's giving you the perfect 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and it's helping you to stay square along the outside edge. If you are off inside here and you continue trimming with it being off, then your block is not going to be nice and square. So make sure you keep it square on the outside, and always keep your seam allowances correct. Now this is the option 1, a square in a square, and that's what we need to make some of these quilts that I'm going to show you next. So this is the Square in a Square reference book. We're going to come back to it here in just a minute because it is the main book, volume 1. It has the, well, I'll just go ahead and tell you about it now. It has the first 17 options in here. It's going to tell you how to do the cutting and the sewing and the pressing. And then on page 34, it gets into the charts. Now, obviously, if you're following one of our patterns, we're going to tell you exactly what sizes of squares and strips and a suggestion on color. But if you're doing your own thing, meaning that you have another pattern that you're adapting over to the system, then these charts are going to be very, very important to you so that you know the sizes of squares and strips. We'll come back to the chart here in just a minute. But let's look at some quilts that use an option 1. This one here is in the Quick and Easy book. In the Quick and Easy book, you can buy separately, or it comes packaged with the Square in a Square ruler. If you've had your ruler a long time, then you might want the Quick and Easy book that has some great designs in it. And the ruler didn't come with it at that time. So all of these are option 1s. You see your square in the middle? These orange were the strips that you sew around. And then you just have a little sashing and a cornerstone. You have 7 rows with 5 in a row. And these are all just option 1s. Just a quilt, all option 1s, square and squares. It's amazing how beautiful they are and how you can use them all by themselves. Now this next one is called All Spruced Up. And it is a little Christmas tree. And this is actually a free pattern on our website. All of these are option 1s. So see how you have the square in the middle with the red strips on the side. Maybe you had a tan square in the middle with the green strips on the side. All of these are trimmed option 1s. Even these up here on the outside edges of your quilt, these are option 1s. So look here. Here you have your square in the middle. You had red strips on 2 sides, tan strips on 2 sides. That's just an option 1. All of these are. And see how they're all sewn together in rows, and they're stacked right on top of each other when you sew them together. Now, another cool thing about this one is that you could take a ribbon about 12 inches long, tack the middle of the ribbon right into the middle of the little square, and since you have 25 of these option 1s in here, you can decorate 1 square each day and have the 25-day countdown to Christmas. So you would just thread that little Christmas ornament on, tie it in a little bow, and decorate your tree each day as you go along. Now the other one that's pretty amazing is the tumbling blocks that you can get. Now with the tumbling blocks, they're found in this reference book that I referred to. Let's look for the option 1s. So do you see? You see that option 1 in there just like that? Square in the middle. We put the color on the sides. So basically it was kind of like this scrappy one where we just put a different color on each side. We trimmed it, leaving the 1/4 of an inch, just like I did on this little red one. And look, all of these are option 1s in the quilt. And they're sewn in rows. Now when the rows go together, we're not going to stack them right on top of each other like we did in the Christmas tree. We're going to stagger them like bricks. So you see this option 1 here, and then do you see this one here? Do you see how the seam here goes through the center of the one above it and below it? And when you sew these rows together, the interactions come together of your colors, and it creates your tumbling blocks with no Y seams, no diamonds, and no set in pieces. And the tumbling block quilt is found in your volume 1 of your reference books, and it has it all laid out for you so that you can know what color goes where. There's basically just 4 different fabric colors that you're going to use, and then the different ways you twist them and do your layout, then your quilt will all come together. So on page 105 is your In Your Garden with Tumbling Blocks. Maybe you can see here how it's all sewn together in rows. And when the rows go together, do you see how that seam goes through the center of the one above it and below it? Now we also have, to finish it out, some option 4 half square triangles in the corner and a few flying geese along the outside edges to help make that quilt complete. But tumbling blocks is now a very simple quilt instead of one that's for advanced quilters. This is just a little bit of the option 1. Now let's look at the charts in our reference book. All of the different options, flying geese, half square triangles, all 39 of them have their own chart to help you with your sizing, because you want to know what size of squares and strips do I start with so that my option turns out to be the size that I need. So this is an option 1 when I trim leaving the 1/4 of an inch on all 4 corners. Here's my option 1 chart. It's also the option 5 chart because the trimming is the same. So this has a cut edge or a raw edge. So let's say that it's 4 inches. When it sews into the quilt, it will sew down smaller. A 4-inch would turn into a 3.5. So when I come over here and look at the pages on my charts, the very first column says what is the sewn size of your option 1 that you're looking for. Then your next column will tell you what size to cut your center square, and your last column tells you what size to cut the width of your strip, because we know the length is whatever the square is. So if you're working with a 4-inch square, these have to be at least 4, somewhere between 4 and 4.5. So let's say that this is our sewn size. Let's say that we need a 4-inch sewn. That means with raw edges it's 4.5. We're going to come across. The next column will tell you what size to cut the center square, and the last column will tell you what size to cut the width of your strip. So once you get into the square and square system, it's very easy to use the charts and do your pattern adapting and adapt every quilt over to one of the different triangle units, one of the options of the square and square system. I hope you enjoyed our video today and that you learned something about the basic square, the option 1 square and how to use it in quilts, and how to use your charts in the must-have volume 1 reference book of the square and square. Thanks for watching. I forgot to show you 2 great option 1s in these 2 quilts. This one is called Union Square, and it is an individual pattern, but look how you can fussy cut something and go in the middle, and then put your strips on the side and trim it into an option 1. So these are option 1s that are all fussy cut. Then on this one over here, and this one that I forgot to show you this one is called Rounding the Square, and it comes in the mini ruler book that you can buy separately, or it comes with the mini ruler. But look, here's your square in the middle, and these were the strips on the side. So with my finger next to it, you can see how big it is, or I might say how small it is. So this row has a 4-patch, an option 1 square and a square, 4-patch, option 1 square and a square, and there are 6 of those in this little quilt. So it doesn't matter. You can go as big as you want or as small as you want.